Hello everyone. Next question. Write about different sensors in accordance to remote sensing. It's a 7 mark question, mostly asked in GT examinations. Remote sensors are the instrument that measure the properties of electromagnetic radiation leaving a surface medium due to the scattering and or emissions. There are two types of sensors. First is a passive sensor and second is the active sensors. Now what is a passive sensor? Passive sensor senses natural radiations which is either emitted or reflected from the target. The sun energy is either reflected as it is for visible wavelengths or absorbed and then re-emitted as it is in thermal infrared wavelengths. Passive sensor can only be used to detect natural occurring energies. This is no reflected energy available from the sun at night. The amount of solar radiation present at a polar latitudes is often insufficient for visible light sensors, limiting the use of passive sensors to lower latitudes. The problem associated with passive sensors sensing can be overcome by designing a remote sensing system in which sensors can be used that are capable of detecting radiation in several different portions of the electromagnetic spectrum. For example, by using a combinations of variables and thermal infrared channels, where the satellite can be provided imaginary of the earth clouds patterns during the both day and night hours. Thematic mapper is a good example of a passive sensor. The sensor has 7 bands of channels, each being sensitive to the different ranges of EMRs. The sensors on the thematic mapper are sensitive to narrow positions of the visible and near infrared positions of the spectrum, with the 1 band sensitive to the thermal infrared. Now, what are the active sensors? Active sensors which produce its own electromagnetic radiation. We have seen passive sensors are the natural radiations, sense based are natural radiation, and active sensors are which produce its own electromagnetic radiations of a specific wavelength, of a bands of wavelength, and the interactions of the radiations with the target is studied for large target that identification are called active sensors, not a large study for target, a specific target. The sensor which produce on electromagnetic radiations. The active sensor direct a burst of radiations at the target and use sensors to measure how the target interacts with the energy. Most often, the sensor detects the reflections of the energy, measuring the angles, reflections, or the amount of time it took for energy to return. Active sensors provide the capability to obtain measurements anytime, regardless of the time of the day or season. However, active system requires the generation of fairly large amount of energy to adequate illuminate targets. Synthetic uh, aperture radar (SAR) is one of the best examples for active remote sensing. This sensing system operates the microwave regions of electromagnetic spectrum and include radiation with wavelengths longer than 1 m. Doppler radiation is another example of active remote sensing technology. A Doppler radio is a ground-based system that emits radio energy in a radial pattern. As the transmitter rotates, a sensor measures the reflections or echo of the energy of such electro atmospheric particles as dust, raindrops, and even birds. These echoes, when plotted on a regional map, assist a meteorologist in determining the exact locations of a storm center and notifying the public of the area of potential severe weather. Sensors are further classified as ORI sensors, microwave sensors, imaging sensors, and non-imaging sensors. ORI sensors, the sensors which is operating in optical and infrared regions are ORI sensors. Microwave sensors. This sensors operates the microwave frequencies of electromagnetic spectrum. Non-imaginary sensors. This sensors measures the intensity of radiations within the field of view, and in some cases a functions of distance along the line of the sights of the instrument. Spectro, radiometer, vertical temperatures profile, and radiometers. Imaging sensors. The sensors gives two-dimensional spatial distribution of the emitted or reflected intensities of the radiomagnetic radiation, electromagnetic radiations. So those are the sensors: ORI sensors, microwave sensors, imaginary sensors, non-imaginary sensors, active sensors, and passive sensor are the examples. Thank you.